let me remind you of the postulates of quantum mechanics that we introduced last time. Here's your summary version, the thing to remember. So there's 4 postulates. The first one is that wave functions, quantum states, are elements of a Hilbert space that have unit norm. Okay. Second postulate is that evolution is unitary. So state before some time, state after some time. The evolution between those times is governed by some unitary. Unitary means that u dagger u is equal to identity. Remember, formally, this comes from Schrodinger's equation. In practice, for us in the course with quantum information, quantum computing, usually we just care that it's unitary, and we're not going to solve the differential equation ourselves. It's just some unitary. The third postulate is a fun one. This is the measurement postulate. A measurement is defined by a collection of operators, m sub m, such that this completeness relation is true. The probability of obtaining outcome m, always given a state psi, it's always with respect to a state psi that you're in, is given by this equation. And then immediately after the measurement, the state transforms to the measurement operator mm corresponding to the outcome that you measured, acting on the state psi, and then you need to renormalize it by 1 over the square root of the probability. By the way, everyone agrees on this equation. Not everyone agrees on how to interpret this equation. So depending on who you ask, you'll get different answers. It's a little bit too philosophical for my personal taste, but it's very interesting to think about actually what happens when you measure a quantum state. The conventional school is known as the Copenhagen interpretation, that the wave function collapses onto the state that you get. Of course, physically thinking that happens instantaneously in time is kind of strange. So there's many other interpretations of this. I'll just mention that one, but you can read more about it in your textbook. The fourth postulate is that the composite states of a physical system with n wave functions is equal to the tensor product. So this is a state. Each one of these is a valid wave functions. And the space, the new vector space, is the tensor product of the individual Hilbert spaces. Now, today we're going to go a little deeper into these postulates. And I want to start you off with the one that I promised last time, which is concerning postulate 4, but really also concerning the superposition principle, which is inherent in the, postulate 1, really, it's just a Hilbert space, and this has the linearity property. So let me jump you back to chapter 2.2.8, which is about composite systems. And the thing that we're going to introduce is one of the most surprising consequences of these postulates, and that is entanglement. How many of you have heard of entanglement? Yeah? So for whatever reason, it's kind of a buzzword now, or a popularly used word. And, but it has a very precise mathematical definition that I want to define for you today, and then we're going to do a little a game, so to speak, to understand really what it means for two quantum systems to be entangled. So the definition goes as follows. So let's start with just a bipartite quantum state, which is usually how you define this. Multipartite entanglement is a little more interesting. So let's consider a bipartite quantum system with two parts that I'm going to label A and B. Okay? If you want to think of these as people, as we conventionally do, Alice and Bob. So you can think of Alice having a quantum state and Bob having a quantum state. And then they're going to combine them to form a composite system. So I'm going to denote this psi with the subscripts AB. So if this state psi AB can be written in the form of some state phi that Alice has, tensor some state phi that Bob has, Let me use a different symbol here. Let me use phi for the state Alice has, and let me use, for example, tau that the state Bob has. If the state can be written in this way, then we say that it is separable. We say psi AB is a separable state. Otherwise, if it cannot be written in this way, we say that psi AB is entangled. So think about this physically. We're describing this composite state that Alice and Bob have as some state that Alice has, tensor some state that Bob has. So in effect, we're describing the states separately. That's why we use the term separable. It's going to be a surprising consequence of these postulates that not all states can be written in this way. This is one of the things that's very common in quantum, which is mathematically kind of simple or not too strange, but physically it's very strange. So here's the game part of this. Let's consider the following example. I want you to answer 3 questions about 3 states that I'm going to present to you. The first question, given a state, is it a valid quantum state? What is Alice's quantum state? And then what is Bob's quantum state? Okay? So the first state that I want to give to you to start off this example is 0, tensor 0. Would this be a valid quantum state? Recall that we use ket 0 to indicate the 2-element column vector 1, 0. Yes, this would be a valid quantum state because it lives in a Hilbert space, the tensor product Hilbert space, and it has unit norm. Okay? So this is a valid quantum state. Who could tell me what the state of Alice's qubit is? We're thinking of Alice being on the left as in this equation. What is the state of the quantum system that Alice has? This isn't a trick question. This one's obvious. So Alice has the state 0, as well as Bob having the state 0. Okay? Alice has the state 0 on the left. Bob has the state 0 on the right. So this one's obvious, right? 2 separate systems. It's a tensor product space. But I can still describe it as Alice has this state and Bob has this state. Slightly more interesting example. Let's consider the following. 0, 0. And I'm going to use our notation now where I'm omitting the tensor product, but it's implicitly there. 0, 0 plus 0, 1 over the square root of 2. Is this a valid quantum state? Right now, it might take you a second to work out, but make sure you can compute the norm of this state using, for example, the inner product and how we compute inner products on a tensor product space. When you do that, the 1 over root 2 with the 2 terms will give you a unit norm. So this is indeed a valid quantum state. Could anyone tell me what the state of Alice's qubit is? What state does Alice's quantum system have, or what state is it in? This one is slightly less obvious, but if you stare at it for a minute, you realize that you can factor this in the following sense. I can write this as 0. Notice I'm identifying the common 0 between the 2 terms, and I'm going to use the linearity property of the tensor product. So I can write this as 0 tensor 0 plus 1 over the square root of 2. Do you agree? Going from the bottom to the top might be a little easier. You just use that tensor product property, but you can see that these are equal. It might take you a second to realize you can factor it like this, but you can indeed factor it like this. Now, seeing it written like this, who could tell me what is the state of Alice's qubit? Yep, 0. It's going to be the one on the left of the tensor product. And so Alice's qubit is going to be in the state 0. And how about Bob's? 0 plus 1. And remember the normalization over root 2. Exactly right. So 0 plus 1 over the square root of 2, which we also know as the plus state. Okay. Now, the third and final state, an example that I have for you, is the following. So similar to this one, which is a separable state, but I'm going to write it as 0, 0, plus 1, 1 over the square root of 2. This is a valid quantum state for a similar reason as above. It's going to have unit norm. Could anyone stare at this and try to factor it in a similar way that we did above to say with certainty the state of the qubit that Alice has and the state of the qubit that Bob has? This one is a trick question because no matter how hard you try, you're not able to factor this into the form of something that Alice has tensor something that Bob has. So how do we answer this question? There's really no way to answer it. That's what entanglement is. It's a very strange thing physically because we started, I'll show you how to start that in a state that looks like this and transform it by unitary operations to something that looks like this. So we started in a state where we could describe Alice's qubit and Bob's qubit. There's no problem there. But we transformed it into one where we could not do that anymore. We call that an entangled state. I don't think I included it on the timeline on the first day, but in 1935, Einstein, Podolsky, and Rosen were the first ones to notice this feature of quantum mechanics. And we're asking, how do we feel about this, essentially? It's a very strange thing. And it was later in the 1960s that John Bell did more work on this, as well as others that were involved, who showed that there's actually some explicit tests that you could do on this to lead to some surprising consequences. Those theoretical proposals were carried out experimentally and were the recipient of the Nobel Prize 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I forget exactly. But this is one of them.